Since doing some recent content on my channel featuring my new Kemper stage and releasing a few rig collections, I've had a number of questions come rolling in about how I approach certain things. Now, I wanted to do a video today just talking about my approach to creating a rig. Once I've created a profile of whatever amp I am using, there's a few little things, some of them not so earth-shattering by any stretch, that I like to add to the rig to just give the final profile a little bit more of a polished sound to it. You know, there's really no such thing as a perfect tone or a perfect preset or a perfect profile that's going to suit every single person in every single situation and every single guitar. So I've never been one to think that once a profile has been captured, that is carved in stone and it can never be altered in any way. In fact, I think it's only reasonable to think that sometimes we may have to make subtle small tweaks to it to make it just sit perfectly for whatever situation we're using. That's not to say that there's anything wrong with the existing or original profile. It's just that certain situations call for different things. And there's also never accounting for folks' taste and what they like to hear. So today I wanted to give you a couple little things. One main one that I like to add into each rig, whether I actually even use it in the end or not, I do like to have it there, and I'll explain why. And today, what I'm going to be doing is featuring one of the new rig collections I very recently released on my website, and that is the Sold 30 Kemper Ultimate Rig Collection, which is a set of profiles based off of my Soldano SLO30 amplifier, which I really love, and I'm really happy with the way that these turned out. So I'm going to feature those today. The link is below if you're interested in taking a look at that rig collection on my website. There's a demo video there, which I'm also going to play you later in this video so you can hear how the different rigs from this collection work together when used with drums and bass in a mix. And I think it turned out really nice, and I'm very happy with the tones. But I'll also take you through each of the tones in the collection in a moment, and then we'll talk about how I set up my rig. So without further ado, let's head over to Rig Manager and we'll take a look. All right, so here we are over in Rig Manager, and I have just a certain number of the profiles from the rig collection here. I have all of the studio profiles. I do actually have included with this collection is all of these as DI captures as well. And then I also have a liquid profile. If you're running on the new OS 10 beta, which is what we're at the time of me making this video, you can also load those in and utilize those. Those turned out really, really cool. And those are based off of the SLO settings within the new liquid profiling. I thought those were really cool. And I have both a studio and a DI version of that. So those aren't shown today, but they are included when you grab the whole collection. So what I've done here is I have JS, my initial, Sold 30, Norm 1, Norm 1B. Any of the particular rigs with a B after them on that normal channel are going to be with the bright switch engaged. Any without are going to be with the bright switch off. I want to give you as many possibilities as you could have as far as how this amp really functions. And then I have OD1, OD2, OD3, which are different levels of gain on the lead channel. So starting here at Norm 1, we have this tone here. On the bridge pickup on my Gibson SG, if I go to the neck pickup, back to the bridge pickup. Now we'll go over to with the bright switch engaged. As we would expect, a little bit thinner sounding. Nice stuff. So now we'll push that same normal channel into a little bit more of a crunchy sound, edge of breakup. Engage the bright switch on that. Now I do have something else engaged on this, and we're going to talk about that later when I talk about my approach to creating rigs. So you'll notice I have a little studio equalizer on here. I'm just going to turn that off. I'll explain how I'm using it. being used in a very subtle manner, but I have a very particular purpose for having that there. And this is one of the main questions I had. So we'll talk about that shortly after I run through the rest of these. So we're on to the highest level of gain on the normal channel now. Bright switch engaged. Moving on to the second channel, the lead channel on its first level of gain. Second level of gain. And the final level of gain. And that is it for the studio rigs. As I mentioned, with this collection, we get all the DI rigs as well, included with those that you can merge together with these if you would so desire. And you also have the studio and DI liquid profiles as well, all included with this. So I hope you guys enjoy that. If you decide to take a look, there is a link below to it. So how about coming back here? We'll come back to OD1 and we'll take a listen to this again. Let's just turn everything off that I have in here. Now, you'll notice I do have a noise gate at the beginning. It helps us to cut down on any noise when we start getting into gainier tones. So I have that set to cut that out. So that's one thing I like to add in. I have the studio equalizer, I have a single delay, and I have this natural reverb. So if I shut everything off, this is exactly how this particular profile sounded when I captured it. I love using ribbon mics when I'm capturing. I just love the tone that they give. There's something very natural about it, but sometimes they do need a little bit of EQ after the fact, sometimes not. Just depends. So I do like to grab a very natural kind of, or what I feel is a very natural kind of a tone to my ears. Now, some folks may just love that for their monitoring system, their tastes, their guitar, and just leave it as is. Now, one thing I like to do, though, is I like to add a little bit of reverb of some sort. Nothing too overt. I understand that sometimes we're going to need something bigger and larger than life, maybe. But just for setting these up, I like to give something that's just going to give more of a natural kind of a room ambience, right? Just so it sounds like we're playing in a natural space. So I choose this natural reverb with, a fairly small decay time of 0.95 seconds. You can see here room size is on 0, pre-delay is on 0 milliseconds. My mix is at 66.4%. That just gives me this kind of a tone here. And I just kind of gives the sound a little bit of life to it. Now, I also always put a delay on. I don't engage it all the time, but I like to have it there. I'm a real sucker for having a delay at my toes if I so desire, but I use it in a pretty subtle manner. I usually keep my feedback fairly low. I time it to a tap tempo, so I have it set to a quarter note. Mix is at 52.2%. And I have it set up to be kind of dark sounding. So it's not really walking all over my playing as I'm playing it. You know, I'm not getting into using the ducking feature. But that's the settings that I kind of like. So that's in there as well. Now, coming over to the studio EQ, you know, a lot of folks right away say, oh, you shouldn't have to add an EQ. And if you actually notice here, my mid gain is on 0. My second mid gain is on 0. They're not doing anything, but I do have high and low frequency set for the shelving EQ. I have a little low cut and a little high cut here, just up around 10 to 11,000 hertz, and here just around 100 hertz. These don't have to be exact, but somewhere in that ballpark. You'll notice, so I have very subtle moves made here. I'm going in and around the 650 hertz range on the low shelf, and I'm just pulling out all the frequencies below that by 1 dB. Very subtle, and I go up to all the frequencies above, say 600, 650-ish, in and around there, and I'm adding just here I have it set to 0.9 dB, but you know, it might be 1 dB here. But the reason I like to have this in the chain is, what if we get a tone that we love and we get to a particular venue and we're performing and it just doesn't sound quite bright enough, or maybe it sounds too bright? This setting is what I have found utilizing high and low shelf EQs. Setting the high and low frequency both in and around 650 hertz gives us a very quick way. And I do this on the Helix, I do this on Tonex, I do this on all modelers that I've ever used that have this ability to add it in. I'll try and set these. Now, some of them don't have these exact settings available, but when they do, I set them in and around the 650 hertz for both of them. And then what that allows me to do is to either clean up any mud and low end by pulling those frequencies out, or add some fullness by putting more of them in, depending on how the particular tone I'm playing sounds, or taking out any harshness or adding a little bit of brightness by going to the frequencies above that. Now, I make very subtle moves, as you notice, minus 1 dB, plus 1 dB, let's call it. Let's just round up here. So a lot of folks might see that and say, oh, you shouldn't have to put an equalizer there. And it's like, well, I'm almost not. I mean, when you think about it, it's such a subtle change that it's almost not going to be noticeable, other than obviously the low and the high cut. So if I turn this off, here is our tone, just with the reverb on. I have no problem with that tone, and I could just play that all day long. I could come in and throw my delay on just like that. Little delay and reverb, and I'm really loving that. Just the way it was captured, as the way I've dialed it in and wanted it to sound. But who knows, maybe we get to a venue, or maybe we're working on a mix and we go, I just need a little more brightness and a little less, you know, bottom or mud on that. And I come in here and I just engage this, and now it'll sound like this. Now, what if we said, oh, I want that a little brighter? We can simply come to our high gain. Let's be a little more aggressive with it. Obviously, way too much. Kind of abrasive now. See how it affects the bottom? It cleans it up. I mean, that might be way too thin. But we never know. Maybe in a mix, that's what's going to work perfectly. So this little block set up in this manner, just what I find gives us a very quick and intuitive way to be able to slide in here and make very subtle tweaks to an otherwise already great sounding profile. So the other thing I want to address is nobody says you need to use it. You can simply go and turn it off and it's fine. It doesn't need to be there. It's not like this tone is just begging for this, but I like to have it there. Sometimes it's a gauge, sometimes it's not, but I like to put it in there. If you're hearing something that's too bright, then come in and make your adjustments or shut it off altogether, or just use this to tweak and shape the tone to be absolutely perfect. So starting with a great tone, and it gives us the ability to very easily tweak this in a manner that's going to be intuitive and that can get us an even better result in a particular situation. So I hope that answers the question as to how I set that up. So basically that's it. I can come in here, add a delay, add a little bit of natural reverb, maybe add in that studio equalizer, just utilizing the high and low shelf. And it gives me exactly what I want, and I can apply that to any one of these rigs. And it does a nice job of allowing me to be able to tweak those in hopefully a very useful manner. All right, so there you have it. That's how I set up my basic little rig after I've completed a profile. And I find that that just gets me off and running to a nice little starting point. Obviously, you can add other effects for particular songs or situations that you need. But I find that that's my sort of starting point template that I kind of go to immediately after creating a profile that I like. And that kind of gives me what I need to be able to shape that tone in whatever way that I might need. So I hope you found that enjoyable and useful. I'm going to leave you today with the demo video for my Sold 30 Kemper Ultimate Rig Collection, which is available at the link below through my website. If you like the tones you heard today, think about supporting my channel and grabbing a copy of the collection yourself. So I hope you guys enjoy the little demo I'm about to play you on the way out. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please like the video, share it with anybody you think would get some use or enjoyment out of watching it. And also please subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell notification to get notified when I put new content out. I'll be back really soon with some more. Thank you guys again so much for sharing your time with me. Ciao for now.